This is the Louie T Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I am your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Week number 11 in the National Football League. St. Louis Rams at home taking on the Denver Broncos. Who gave these guys a chance in this game? I mean, it's Peyton Manning, 7-2, shredding up the league, scoring points, winning football games. Rams making another switch at the quarterback position, this time back to veteran Shaun Hill after giving the young fella Austin Davis a look early in the season. And so you're thinking, okay, what are you doing, St. Louis? I mean, really, what are you looking to accomplish here going back to Shaun Hill? I mean, what is he going to do? Come in and beat the Denver Broncos? Get out of here with that. I mean, that was the prevailing thought, right? Going into this game, no way the Denver Broncos don't go and just run clear over this St. Louis Rams team that has really been playing some good football, but not good enough to get back to 500. I mean, they had an opportunity last week to do something big within the division. They've already beaten Seattle. They've already beaten San Francisco. They had a chance, had Arizona on the ropes, let them off the hook. So maybe this move to Shaun Hill was a move that said, hey, if we get a stabling force at the quarterback position, a guy that's a veteran that won't make the mistakes that Austin Davis made at the end of that Arizona game, or hell, made about 3 or 4 of them, and throw the game away. If we get a guy that'll come in and be a calming influence, somewhat like what the Bills have with Kyle Orton at the quarterback position. They won't win you a heck of a lot of games, but they won't throw them away either. And if you play good enough defense with a quarterback like that, hey, you can win games in this league. Ask the Kansas City Chiefs. So here we go. Denver Broncos, St. Louis Rams. Anything can happen in the National Football League. Big completion of Kenny Britt leads to a field goal early in this game. Okay, fine, he got 3. That was my thought early on when they made that completion and picked up a field goal. I said to myself, you need 7, and you get a field goal out of this. And I'm saying, you can't field goal your way to a win over Peyton Manning. It's not going to happen. Any team led by the sheriff, Peyton Manning, you need to score at least 24 if you want a realistic shot at winning, because you're asking a lot out of your defense if you only score field goals. You got to score touchdowns. You know the mantra. You know the motto. Field goals don't win games. Touchdowns do, unless your defense is only giving up 7 points. Then that changes the whole narrative. So it's 3-0. St. Louis up early in this game. Denver driving down the field. And this is when I thought to myself, they're smelling themselves right now, okay? Normally, you don't do this, especially on the road, unless you're playing a team you feel like you're going to beat. When you're playing against a New England, you're playing against a Pittsburgh, you're playing against the Indy, you take the points. You don't elect to go for it on 4th down when you're in a situation where this is indoors. We're talking about you're in St. Louis, a situation where they're at the 37-yard line. We're talking 55 yards field goal maybe. I mean, if you had Matt Prater, you probably kick this field goal. I'm not a big fan of their field goal kicker that they have now. So, hey, maybe that went into the equation as to why they went for it. Or maybe they just felt like they should be able to pick up 4th and 1. Whatever the case, or 4th and 2. But whatever the case may be, they went for it. They're not able to convert. Incomplete pass as Monte Ball couldn't catch it. It was a bad pass by Peyton Manning. I mean, they tried to make it seem like Monte Ball should have caught the football. I mean, it was a bad pass. And so, either way, that's the second week in a row I've seen Peyton Manning miss a wide open target out in the flats that would have resulted in a big play. Last week it was a touchdown that was negated because of the incompletion, because Peyton Manning threw a bad ball. This week it's an incompletion on 4th down that would have been a 1st down had he made the completion. So you can see Peyton being a little rusty sometimes, maybe a little antsy. The Rams applied pressure in this game. And this is the St. Louis Rams defense that we signed up for at the beginning of the season. They're starting to show up now. It's a little late, but hey, better late than never. These guys are starting to play football. They're getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They're making life miserable for offenses around the league. At San Francisco, they couldn't get it done against this St. Louis Rams football team. Carson Palmer was not that great last week against this Rams defense, especially for the first 3 quarters. I mean, this team was winning going into the 4th quarter, 14-10 last week, because the defense was getting it done before the offense unraveled and gave this game away. So you fast forward to this game, they got pressure on Peyton Manning. Since that San Francisco game when they got 8 sacks, they've been revving it up and they've been getting after opposing quarterbacks. They're starting to do what we thought they were going to do when this season started in St. Louis on the defensive side of football. Either way, they don't pick it up on 4th down. First play after the turnover on down, sudden change of possession. Rams go up top. Sean Hill lets it rip. And one of the knocks on Sean Hill for his career has been a lack of arm strength. This isn't a guy that's going to drive the football down the field necessarily. He'll dink and dunk you. He'll make smart plays. He'll even use his legs from time to time if you make him. And he's a guy that's a very smart quarterback. I already said, before the season started, I felt like the Rams had one of the best backup quarterback situations because Sean Hill is one of the most dependable backup quarterbacks you will find in this entire National Football League. So that being said, to see him come in and fling it 63 yards to Kenny Britt for a touchdown, about 40 of that in the air. Kenny Britt, and this was some tight coverage. This pass was on the button, on the money. You can't run up and hand it to him any better. Kenny Britt was breastfed on this play by your starting quarterback in this game, Sean Hill, and he was able to break away from the defender and walk into the end zone. It's 10-0 St. Louis. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. What are you doing here, St. Louis? And you know what? Even when they went up 10-0, I still said to myself, this is a Rams team that likes to jump out to quick starts, likes to take an early lead, only to crumble later on in the game. So it's still Denver. You're still playing Peyton Manning and company. They can score points in bunches. This is still a Rams team that doesn't know how to close out the show. I said, hey, this is a great start. I mean, if you're going to win, this is what you need to do. But I said it's still early, still the first quarter. It's 10-0 Rams on top as we head to the second quarter. Kenny Britt destroying Denver D as he and Sean Hill are making beautiful music down the field. And Kenny Britt was hooking up short. He was hooking up in the medium range. He was also hitting them deep, as we talked about with that 63-yard touchdown. Kenny Britt was doing it all. He was going over the middle of the field. He was catching on the outside. He was going up top. And so he was doing it in the intermediate, the short, the deep, you name it. Him and Sean Hill were on the same page in this football game, and you could see there was some chemistry there between the two. And it was working out in the favor of the Rams. That possession ends in another field goal. It's now 13-0, St. Louis on top. Again, I'm feeling some type of way about what St. Louis is doing because even though you're dominating, you're still only up 2 scores. Peyton Manning and this Denver Broncos offense, they can score 2 points or 2 touchdowns in their sleep in a matter of seconds. We saw it against Denver, or excuse me, against Oakland a week ago where Oakland was up 6-10 right before the half. Couple of mistakes, boom, it's 20-10, halftime lead for Denver Broncos. So as much as I wanted to say, man, St. Louis, I'm really feeling what you're doing right here, I would have loved to have seen them score some touchdowns, score some more points, make it tougher on Denver, make them feel some pressure, make them abandon the run, make them make some mistakes because of the pressure they're feeling because the game is getting out of hand. It's only 13-0. This is still right in the wheelhouse of Peyton Manning and this Denver Broncos offense. And here is why I still felt like they were going to win this game. Defensive breakdown. And we've seen these from this St. Louis Rams team from time to time this season. We saw it in the Dallas game. We saw it in the San Francisco game. Something similar to this. Remember, that San Francisco game changed right before the half on a Brandon Lloyd 80-yard touchdown strike as we were going to the halftime break. This wasn't quite the same, but it was still a defensive breakdown nonetheless. Emmanuel Sanders wide open in the end zone. Defensive breakdown. Somebody made a mistake. Either way, Peyton Manning hooks up with Emmanuel Sanders on a 42-yard touchdown. No Ram in sight as the Rams now are clinging to a 13-7 lead at the half. And so if you're a Rams fan, you're thinking, here we go again. We jump out to a lead. We make some mistakes. We're not going to score enough points. And Denver is going to turn it up, and they're going to end up beating us in this game. That's what I was thinking too. You're not alone. So we go to the halftime break. Rams nursing a 13-7 lead. Here comes the Denver Broncos, though, as they started to gain some momentum right before the half. You come to the third quarter, and right as they're going on to the field, we get a nice little sideline report. And the sideline reporter says, hey, Juice isn't coming back. He's gone, and he's not coming back in this game. I said, ouch. That hurts. That's a biggie. So Rams injuring, Juice is huge because you take away one of Peyton Manning's targets, not only one of his targets, but one of his security blankets. He loves throwing the football to Juice. When all else fails, he always knows, I got Wes Welker and I got Juice that I can throw the football to. You take one of those away, and now all of a sudden, Peyton Manning not as comfortable as he normally is. That's a mismatch for any team. And so to take away a target like Juice, okay, that's definitely a help to this Rams football team. Add Emmanuel Sanders to that list on the first possession of the third quarter. Peyton Manning takes a shot down there. I thought Peyton Manning did an awful job of protecting his receivers in this game. He got Wes Welker clobbered early in the first half. Luckily, Wes, because Wes will get a concussion quick. So luckily enough for him, Wes was able to get up and shake that one off. But Emmanuel Sanders was not as fortunate as he goes for a deep ball. Peyton lays it out there. Here comes one of the safeties from the Rams. Want to believe it was McLeod. And he absolutely tears Emmanuel Sanders a new one. And it was a legal hit. You ask me, he didn't lead with the head. He led with the shoulder. It was a little high, but again, what do you want the man to do? I thought it was a clean hit. He did not go helmet-to-helmet contact. I like the hit. He dislodged the football, and Emmanuel Sanders ended up with a concussion. Slow to get up on the play, of course, as you would imagine after taking a shot like that. He got smashed. And what the Rams effectively did there was they took away the one guy that could change the game. Emmanuel Sanders already had over 100 yards receiving, including that 42-yard touchdown right before the half. So they took away the one guy that was impacting the game for the Denver Broncos. So now no Juice, no Sanders. All you really got to contend with now is double 8 Demaryius Thomas. You stop him from beating you. You've got yourself a W in this game, and you need to continue to pressure Peyton Manning, which is what this Rams team did in the second half, which is something that I didn't think they would be able to do. But that's what's different about this team right now. They're getting after the quarterback consistently. You do that, Denver already has issues running the football. I talked about this in the AFC West breakdown about my worries about this Denver Broncos team long-term not being able to run the football consistently. You can't survive in this league against teams that can get after your quarterback if you can't run the football to take some of the pressure and kind of put teams on their heels. If they know they can pin their ears back, get after your quarterback, and they can rush the quarterback with just 4 or send a blitz and come with 5, they can get after your quarterback, and that's what this Rams team did in this game, getting after Peyton Manning. So no Sanders, no Juice. That's a big problem for the Denver Broncos moving forward. Rams with a solid drive, keyed by Trey Mason on a 22-yard scamper. He breaks the tackle, gets up the field, makes a big run. He's been key ever since being inserted into the starting lineup. I thought that 1-2 punch of him as the starter and Benny Cunningham catching it out of the backfield, being a third down back, as well as getting the short yardage, has been wonders for this team. And I think I like what they're doing with Trey Mason and Benny Cunningham. Looks like Zach Stacy is going to be the odd man out of that equation, but I really like what the Rams are doing on the ground right now. And this guy was running the football effectively. They talked about Denver and them not giving up, a 100-yard rusher all season long. Well, Trey Mason definitely got it done in this game. He went over 100 yards as the Rams ran the football very effectively in this game. And that led to another field goal. And I talked about this on the onset of this, that you can't field goal the Denver Broncos to death. So even though that I feel like the Rams are really dominating this game. Like at the end of the third quarter, which is where we are now, it's 16-7 after young Jeezy hammers home another field goal. I'm saying to myself, I should feel more comfortable about this right now. I should feel like the Rams are in the driver's seat. But you look up at the scoreboard, you're talking about a 9-point difference. You're talking about one Demaryius Thomas from Peyton Manning's strike on a wide receiver screen or a slant, and he breaks a tackle, stiff arms another guy, and is off to the races. You're literally talking about one big play, one defensive letdown or lapse by this Rams defense, and you're talking about being down by a field goal. A field goal puts you in the lead if you're Denver. So I still wasn't as comfortable, and I don't think you were at home as a Rams fan either. So you move to the fourth quarter, up 9, 16-7. Manning picked off by Alec Ogletree. Second week in a row, Alec Ogletree has had an impactful interception to help his football team. Last week, Arizona driving, getting into the red zone. Alec Ogletree steps in front of a Carson Palmer offering and is able to take it back. Now, you don't get anything out of it, but to stop them from getting points and flip the field position, huge in that game at the time. Another huge play here by Ogletree as he picks off Peyton Manning at their own 47. So you're basically at midfield with that. You pick up a first down or two. Next thing you know, you're sending young Jeezy out for a 55-yarder. And that's the young Jeezy I know. Because at times this year, I was starting to wonder about the young fella. Was this starting to become a situation where maybe you're sending him out there too often for these long ones? He's missing and he's losing confidence by the misses. He went out and he was money in this game. And he knocked home 6 field goals. I mean, I said you couldn't field goal the Denver Broncos in death. Well, that's what you did. 1 touchdown, 5 field goals, and no problem. And this was a big kick because we're talking 55 yards. You missed this? And this means Jeff Fisher has the utmost confidence in this young fella, because if you miss this kick, do you know the kind of field position you're giving up? No problems though. Young Jeezy bangs it home, makes it 19-7. That was a huge kick because what it did now is it forces the Denver Broncos to score 2 touchdowns if they want to win this game. You need 2 touchdowns. No longer can a touchdown and a field goal give them the lead. So that was a huge make. Then Peyton Manning sacked on 4th and 4 as they went for it on 4th down. And I told you they were getting after Peyton all day. They harassed it. And that's the recipe for success against, has been for the duration of his career. That's always been the recipe for success against Peyton Manning. Get pressure on him and get him off the spot. He can't run. He's not mobile. Never has been. Never will be. If you can get pressure on him consistently and frustrate him, he will make mistakes. 2 interceptions in this game. And he will go down. And that's what happened in this game. Turnover on downs. Rams get lucky. And this is when you know it's your day. This is when you know you're living right. And they're living right. They're not living foul in St. Louis. They're living right because Shaun Hill gets blindsided. Greg Robinson doesn't lay a finger on DeMarcus Ware. Some kind of breakdown in protection. And DeMarcus Ware comes scot-free. Probably the NFL leader in sacks right now currently in the league. Only that guy getting loose. I don't know how that happens, but it did. And so he comes scot-free, destroys Shaun Hill. Of course, football comes out, and it's a gratuitous bounce. The ball lands right under Shaun Hill as he falls down and gets sacked. It lands right under him, and all he has to do is just cover it up. So you get lucky. I mean, 85% of the time that ball takes a bounce. There are about 3 Broncos, any of which would have scooped and scored with it, but instead it falls right under Shaun Hill. That's when you had to know. And that's when I knew. I said, y'all gonna win the game today. This game is over because that bounce shouldn't have went the way it went if the Denver Broncos were going to win. That would have been the play that they would have scooped and scored, cut it at 14-19, and then had you sweating. Instead, he falls back on the football. You were happy to punt at that point. And so Peyton picked off one final time. What an outstanding play by Trumaine Johnson. Trumaine Johnson in zone coverage, reads the pass, reads Peyton Manning, is able to fall back into the zone. Did you see the extension, the leaping ability? You got all of that on display. First of all, he's a big kid at 6'1". For him to turn his hips, flip, and be able to track the football, then leave his feet, leap, elevate, and then extend. That extension was gorgeous. And go up and snatch it out of the air. That's some primetime football right there. That's what you've been missing with him on the shelf. Good to have him back, as that was a huge play. That was the nail in the coffin as young Jeezy is onto the field again to nail another bomb, this time from 53, to put the game on ice at 22-7. That would be your final score in this game as the St. Louis Rams upset and surprised the Denver Broncos 22-7. And this is the crazy part about this Rams team. This is the one thing I don't get about this team. You can do this to Denver. You can do what you did earlier in the season in Seattle. You can do earlier, what you did to the 49ers earlier in the season a couple weeks ago. And yet you're a 4-6 team. It's just mind-boggling how this team can be one of the most dominant teams one week and then go to Kansas City and lose. Not saying that Kansas City isn't a good team, but to not even be competitive in that game. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Shaun Hill, because you won against Seattle with Austin Davis. You won against San Francisco with Austin Davis. So I really don't want to hear that argument. It's just, you don't know what you're getting from this team from week to week. And that's why I feel like Jeff Fisher's the right guy. I just need consistency. Maybe if you had the quarterback, you would get consistency. But this defense hasn't been playing like this all year. I mean, just think about it. And I'll leave you with this. As a Rams fan, just think about this. Had you just not blown one of those leads earlier in the season, let's just take the Cowboys game, for instance. You were up 21-0 in that game. Just if you hadn't blown, you'd be at 5-5, right smack dab in the middle of your division. The 49ers are 6-4, the Seahawks are 6-4, and you beat both of those teams. If you were just one game better, you'd be one game behind both of those teams and right in the middle of the NFC West race. Instead, you're at 4-6. It's still a long uphill battle and climb, but this is a huge win. A huge win for your psyche. A huge win for this team that needed a win like this desperately. And it seems like every year this team does this. Whether it was last year against Indy 38-8, or it's this year at home versus Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning 22-7. This team has this in them. You just don't see it enough. And that's the frustrating part. If you go on to the Broncos, this is a tough loss because I feel like the Patriots have a legitimate shot at losing tonight at Indy, and you would have had an opportunity to leapfrog them for the #1 seed. And forget about #1 seed for a second. Kansas City, don't tell nobody, but the Kansas City Chiefs, Kansas City, just did something that you couldn't do. Mind you, they got the Seattle Seahawks at home. Doesn't matter. They did something that you couldn't do. They beat them at home, and so now don't look. But these boys are 7-3, just like you are. Now you've beaten them already, but you still got to go to Arrowhead. That's going to be interesting and fascinating to see how that AFC West turns out, as now the Kansas City Chiefs are playing outstanding football and you are somewhat reeling. Wasn't that impressive against the Jets? You get it done this week. Hey, the Raiders had you on the road for about a half. They made mistakes and allowed you to run away with it. I want to see how this Denver Broncos team responds because, again, they don't run the football well. If you can get pressure on Peyton Manning, and don't know how long Juice or Emmanuel Sanders are going to be out. This could be an interesting stretch of football for these Denver Broncos. This is a tough one to swallow. You're now 7-3 on the season. This looked reminiscent of the Super Bowl, which is what you're trying to get away from. They got after Peyton Manning, and it was not pretty in this football game. That's going to do it for Rams Broncos. I thank you for joining me. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me, as I've got plenty more games to break down in week #11 of the National Football League. See you in a bit.